Hey, guess what? It's time for part 2 of pump maintenance. And what we got going on is I just took off the pump that you just saw in the last video. So I went out and put fresh gas in it. And what I do to make sure that they'll start, hopefully, it's been a couple years. It's been like 3 years since this started. Well, 2 years or whatever, maybe a year. That's been at least 2 years for this one, I think. I run the tank completely dry. You know, before I pull it out of the water, which is what I did here. The tank was completely dry. So I gassed it up. Went ahead and tried to start it. You know, I have my choke on. I put my gas on. It's off right now. And pulled about 10 or 15 times, it wouldn't start. So I went ahead and pulled off the air cleaner, because that's the first thing I want to do to test it. I poured gas right straight into here, right into the carburetor. And I went out there, you know, and I was sitting outside. I went ahead and left it unchoked to put the gas in so it would go all the way in. Then I went ahead and choked it off, and I pulled it a couple times and it started right up, and it ran itself out of gas, which means we got a plug down here probably in the float. So today, now, we're going to pull apart the carburetor, and I'll show you what to do, a real quick fix on this. We're going to check the pin in the bottom first to see if that's what it is. So let me show you what's going on. Okay, so what we got going on is this is the drain valve. And more than likely, there's a little needle valve up in here that gets clogged up with stuff, and it'll block the gas from going in. So we're going to do that first. So what I'm going to do is just crack this drain valve. This is a regular 10 millimeter, and the gas is still good in here. So I want to, before I do that, make sure that everything's clean. Don't want anything dropping in here. I'm just going to pour this gas right back into the tank, because it's good gas. There's probably not going to be a whole lot in here. We'll check the color of it too. It may just be old gas. Huh, yeah, look at that. It's old gas. So, yeah, I guess I should have drained this too. Yeah, such is life. Sometimes I do, but sometimes, you know, I don't really bother, because I'm going to be turning right back around and reusing this, you know, motor year after year, and I didn't expect to have the dredging banned and not be able to use my pumps anymore. So, this yellow crap, or let's call it varnish, is what came out of there. So this is no good. We can't use this. We're definitely not going to pour it back into the tank, and that's the problem. Is that it's plugged up and gummed up the inside of this little float valve. So let's I'm going to pour this out and then come back. Okay, I went ahead and switched to a tin can too. Oh, I thought I loosened that. So we're just going to pull this out, this little stem here. Not going to be a whole lot of gas left in there. There's enough. Okay. Well, you know what? This just goes to show that if you're not going to use your gas, you know, that you have in your motor, even though you run it out all the way, and this is what you end up with, go ahead and pull the drain valve right here. And that way, you know, you get all the old gas out of there before you store it. You don't have to go through what I'm going through, which is no big deal. I mean, I've been through it before with the old gas, with motors that don't get used, because sometimes we use, you know, different horsepower motors, and one motor gets put behind, and, you know, so on. So Tighten that back up for just a second here. Don't need a whole lot of torque on this drain valve. And you can see we got some stuff in here. Nothing really all that serious. But we'll clean this out too, make it look really good. So you can see up in there, I hope, I'm not sure, but there's just a little valve up in there we got to look at. And a regular flathead screwdriver fits right in. So, put this light back here. And I'm not really sure which way it's facing. Right, that's alright, hey, no big deal. I'll move this over. There it is. Just make sure it's centered. Going to screw this out all the way. Okay. And let's see here, how are we going to do this? What we got going on here is you can see that you can't see through that, and that's the plug up right there. That's what the problem is. And you know, this is a normal problem, and it happens, and it's a real quick and easy fix. All we got to do is clean this out to where we can see through it again. I'm going to go ahead and get a needle and just take care of that and clean it out, and then we'll take a look up in there and make sure it's all good. It should be just fine, and it should just start right out. And then we're going to change the oil. And the only way we're going to do to change the oil is I'm going to go ahead and start it up, warm it up, and then I'm going to just dump it out. I'm not going to pull the oil plug off the bottom because there's just no need. Okay, especially when you're dealing with dredge motors that are mounted on frames or mounted on something else. You know, like this one here is mounted on a regular dredge mounting plate. I just pick it up and I tip it up and dump the oil right into the container, you know, the waste container. And that's how I, change oil. So I'm not going to show you how I do that. It's like I just pick up the motor and dump the oil out, then I put the new motor oil in. The one thing I do use as far as motor oil goes on everything I own, cars, trucks, all motors, is synthetic. I usually use Mobil 1. And that's what I use in here. The one thing about these little motors like this, it requires SAE 30 weight oil. Okay, and the Mobil 1, most of the synthetics will come in a 530 or a 1030. You don't want to use the 530 because your motor can start, stalling, or just it'll start cutting out on you a little bit, and most people don't know what it is. And what the problem is the oil isn't exactly too light, but maybe a little bit too high of an altitude or whatever. That's causing the oil thin enough to where it's, just not making the contact that it needs. So we always use the 1030 at the very minimum. Or you can just use regular SAE 30, you know, regular grade motor oil. But I use the 1030 synthetic Mobile 1, and then I just change it, you know, when it starts getting dirty. And, you know, it might take, you know, a couple months. It's not going to be every 10 hours like you would with regular oil. I'll let it run until it starts discoloring, and then I change it from there. This sits up in there. Screw that back in. Tighten it down. Okay. Okay, so we put the motor back together. I'm not going to pour gas down the carburetor unless I need to. So all I got to do is turn the gas on. You know, the gas is going to flow into there, you know. Doing that just to help it out a little bit. I know it's going to be there. We'll see if it starts. If it doesn't, then I'll pull this off. We'll put gas in. I'm going to choke it. Let's turn it on. It's on. Should go ahead and be ready to go. What I do is I pull it slow to get the tension on the motor, and this is an old rope. I mean, this is an original rope from who knows when, back in the 1990s or maybe 2000. It's right, and so it's like 12 years old. taking out a little bit of gunk and shellac out of that little opening, the orifice. I'm just going to kill the gas valve and let it run out. Now it's got all fresh gas in it. There's still no need to let it just sit there with gas in it if I'm not going to use it. Should be using it tomorrow. This is the hope, but it's not always the way things work out, so I'm just going to go ahead and drain it for now. Alright, the motor just died, so it's oil change time. And, you know, I don't want to put my hand on the exhaust because it's hot. It's the hottest part, so put it anywhere else. What I do is just tip it up. Been a while since the oil's been changed. And like I said, I just pick it up and dump it by hand. You can see how black that is. That's because it's been sitting for like 2 or 3 years without being used. Okay, good enough. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's it. It's working. Just use premium gas, runs the best. Mobil 1 synthetic oil. You change it when you have to. Like I said, this oil is probably 3 years old. It's been ran for an entire year and put away with the same old oil. So I always change it before I start out for the season. Well, the season for me right now, well, this is August 9th, I think, today. 2012, and it's just starting for the high backer today with a smaller motor. Usually we use the 9 horsepowers, you know, these days on our 4-inch dredge or bigger. So these little 6.5s are the HP 400s, or in this case, it's going to be the HP 350. Doesn't get used anymore, you know, and aside from the dredging ban in California, it doesn't help either. Because I don't have the air pump on here and it's not going to be used on a dredge, I'm going to go ahead and just mount this into the center holes so it's centered on a bracket. Hey, you know what? You guys have a good one.